newspapers in this country seem to be in on it. You know, it amazes me that reporters, journalists, have under their noses, you know, one of the most fantastic stories ever, and yet they completely dismiss it out of hand. It's as if they're frightened to get involved with it somehow.
Would you like to be the news editor who published a headline, "Everything we believe in is now destroyed"? I don't think so. So the newspapers, the media are very good at, and the little joke at the end, "Oh, little green men from Mars." Yeah.
But in 2001, suddenly the media paid some interest, because then something appeared that was almost impossible to overlook. Right behind me is Britain's largest radio telescope, the Chilbolton Observatory. And here it was that the greatest sensation in the crop circle history was to appear in the fields right in front of the telescope.
On the morning of 14th of August 2001, a formation was discovered which was different from any other previously seen. From the ground it looked like a tangled mess, wisps of crop spread around in no system. However, in the evening with growing shadows, a picture appeared, unmistakably that of a face. That picture represented a whole new technique, a screen technique, the same that's used for printing a picture on paper. 3 days later, the face was joined by something that looked like a data strip. Rows of counters made out of standing and flattened crop. But soon an astonishing similarity is discovered. In 1974, the astronomer Carl Sagan composed a message that NASA sent into space from the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico. Binary figures which constituted a graphic code presenting key factors about humans and the planet we live on. 27 years later, an identical pattern appears in a crop field right in front of a similar radio telescope. However, on closer inspection, it's seen to show that the code contains some fundamental differences. Sagan's message explained our calculation system, the dominant chemical substances within the elements that create life on Earth, about our DNA code, humans' height and quantity, and that we live on the third planet in our solar system, and lastly, a sketch of our radio telescope. The message received described the same calculation system, but that silicon is most dominant in life forms in contrast to carbon. The drawing also clearly shows a humanoid figure with large head in relation to its body. It's also explained that they have an extra string in their DNA, are approximately 4 feet tall, inhabit the third, fourth and fifth planets in their solar system, and have a population of around 21.3 billion. Underneath, the telescope has been replaced by something more complex. 1 year earlier, a strange crop circle had appeared in the same place. Is this the same illustration as in the sender's code? Is this the correspondent's radio telescope? If this is not an extremely clever and well-calculated joke conducted by humans, is it a serious response from an alien civilization?
The Chilbolton crop formations really gave new life to the speculations of who is behind this. Is it aliens? Where do they come from? And what is their purpose of this type of communication?
The following year, very nearly on the same day, a new picture appears that gives new force to the alien theory, this time in Crabwood, near the town of Winchester in Hampshire. Once again we see a face, but this time there is an unmistakable resemblance to something extraterrestrial. The picture also contains a print, somewhat similar to that of a CD, with something that appears to be a coded message. This formation also has a new type of design, this time with horizontal line patterns of variable thickness, similar to that of a TV picture. The message on the disc is similar to a spiral band built up of many boxes. But data expert Paul Weige manages to decipher the message.
And I had to enlarge the disc quite substantially on the computer and run some image analysis over it to make it clear so that I could see what was a standing tuft and what was flattened. And while I was doing this, I noticed that every so often there was almost a mistake in the diagram. It was like there was a tuft, where the little square tuft, it had done sort of half size. And I thought, that's a bit odd, and it seemed fairly regular. I was going round, and I sort of counted up, and it was sort of literally every sort of 8 bytes or whatever. And I thought, oh, 8 bytes, and you know, from computer side, is obviously some sort of binary code. So then I did the straightforward thing. I just converted it into ASCII, which is the standard sort of computer language that you encode the alphabet in. And of course I then started to get words forming out, and I thought, I'm getting somewhere here. So I then did the whole thing for the whole lot, and got this message.
The message is in English and reads as follows. Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. Many have been surprised by this message. Are there aliens with such faces that we should be aware of? Or is this a picture of the sender? Does this indicate the start of actual close contact with neighbors in the universe?
My own, and this is only a hypothesis, belief about this, is that there's an effort of the extraterrestrials are gradually trying to communicate with us. A very slow process, giving us a lot of time to digest the fact that we may not be alone here.
I've been researching the UFO phenomenon for longer than the circles, and I think there is a connection between the two. And whatever agency is involved is obviously, I think I know it's a bit of a cliche now, but it's kind of building up to some kind of contact within a short space of time. I think that these signs, or there are signs, or some of them are warning signs, if you look over the history of the phenomenon. And they work on different levels. They work on a subliminal level, on a level of consciousness, influencing people's consciousness. So I think in a way that they're kind of preparing us for possibly some kind of contact, maybe a more open contact within the next few years, possibly.
I think this is the biggest gift we have ever had on the planet. I think it's the most important moment we've ever had on the planet. I think it brings us nothing but good. I think we should all sit calmly and accept the future, because we're in the middle of a dimensional shift right now. And I think our cousins out there, our sisters, realize that the planet Earth is famously like this in the universe, and we are going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future, and it won't be easy. And I think they are very gently offering us help.
I don't know what it is, but I know it isn't planks and boards. And I may be the only person in the world that can say that, coming from both the science and the fact that I watched one happen. There were no planks and boards. You can throw that idea out. There are people who make them, yes. There are people who go in the fields and amuse themselves. They didn't make the one that I saw happen, and they haven't made these others that we've been testing.
Nancy Talbot is not just one of the most well-known crop circle researchers in the world. She's also one of the few that claims to have seen the phenomenon in action at close hand. In 2001, she visited Robert van der Broeke in Holland, a young man who had also said that he had observed the creation of many crop circles. As she was on her way to bed on the second floor of Robert's house, something suddenly happened.
Seconds, minutes later, this tube of light, this brilliant, about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 foot diameter, tube of light came crashing down right in front of those windows. Scared the dickens out of me. I mean, it lit up the field outside like daylight, but there wasn't really time to do anything. It only lasted for a second or so. No noise, no smell, no electromagnetic response in the skin, just this brilliant light and enormous force. It stopped, it disappeared. Did that really happen, you know? Before you had time to think about it, another one, same place. Well, whomp, this thing comes down. Exactly the same. The outside lit up like daytime, the inside lights up. And now I'm thinking, God, I hope Robert's seeing the same thing, because you don't want to see this sort of thing all by yourself. Before I could get on a bed, by then I'm starting to get on a bed, and had begun, you know, to yell for him. A third tube came crashing down. Well, by this time he's halfway up the stairs yelling for me, because he's been watching exactly the same thing from downstairs. Now, from my vantage point, the windows, although very high, cut this tube of light off, you know, at a certain point. He was right next to the windows downstairs and could see considerably farther up in the sky. Neither of us saw anything in the sky from which these tubes of light could possibly have come. There was nothing up there. We went to the windows in the bedroom, looked up, saw nothing, went running downstairs we're getting ready to go out. And I was a little scared. I'm not brave. I thought, if another one of those things comes, I don't want to be underneath it. But Robert, he got brave and he stepped down and nothing happened to him, so I grabbed a flashlight. And we went right to the fence, which is about 85, 90 feet behind the house. And there in that field, right on the other side of that fence, and I think I saw steam. I'm not positive. I couldn't really tell because I was just holding a flashlight. But I think I saw steam rising. And there was a brand new crop circle. And it wasn't just a circle. It was an ellipse, as a matter of fact, a very distinct ellipse with a long pathway going off on the northern end and a crossbar, like a capital letter T. And Robert and I it wasn't there earlier. We'd been right there earlier in the evening. And there it was.
Nancy and Robert's experience can only be confirmed by themselves, even though it was clear that there was a pattern in the field of sweet peas the day after. Were they really witnesses to the phenomenon that creates all the genuine crop circles? Or was it just one of many variations of the phenomenon? Are there many different players of both normal and paranormal origin in the fields?
Now, you've got to remember also that there are so-called man-made designs out there, but at the same point in time, I've come across them where I've gone in a few hours after they've arrived, and I found additions, and I've looked at it, and then I've spoken to some of them afterwards that claim that they did it, and I said, okay, well, you did that, fine, let's see the evidence. And they produce all sorts of evidence, and then I'll say, okay, now what about this bit? They say, oh, we didn't do that bit. I said, well, if you didn't do it, who did? I said, we don't know. But it's human arrogance to think that we're the only intelligent life forms in the universe. There are others out there that have abilities way beyond what we're capable of doing. Now, just because we can't see it doesn't mean to say it isn't there.
If you sit out here in this field, you know, especially for a night maybe, spend a whole night in this circle, in this geometric pattern, which at this time is a complete mystery, you can sit here and you can ask your own fundamental questions, and there's no need for TV or culture, religion. You know, it's like a personal little church for a night, and you know, it's actually very healthy, and it certainly should be looked at very seriously before being ridiculed. Usually the ridicule is stemming from fear rather than fact.
Personally, I think the message of the crop circles is really important, and I think they are one of the most important things happening on the planet at the moment. I think they speak of Earth changes. I think they speak about changes about human evolution. I think we're being stimulated and pulled forward to consider all kinds of possibilities for the fact that the reality which we perceive at the moment is not in fact the entire reality at all.
It is entirely our free choice to give attention to these things. If they wanted to interfere, they would knock out our computers and our electronics and things like that to really give us a shock. You know, but they're not. They're doing it in the middle of fields, and it is entirely our choice to give these things attention. And even when that's the case, they're not giving any really clear answers. They're saying, form your own conclusions. What are your ideas on this? How do you respond to this? And so they're not interfering. They're more like very enlightened grown-ups working with kids. And, and when you're teaching a child, it's best not to say, don't do this and do that. That doesn't really educate a child. It's much better to give a child educational opportunities where they can become aware of the situation and make their own choices, and you've got to set up that experience in a way where the child will figure it out well for themselves, and that is a real education.
Each year you get people saying they're all man-made, they must be a hoax, but equally there's people who refuse to accept that and say, no, this is something which must be investigated more, it's very important. And so what we've found with the crop circles is it has created a whole forum for debate over the nature of reality. There's been nothing like it in modern history, and this whole adventure about arguing between the skeptics and the believers has created this magical space in the middle where we can discuss anything about what the universe is, and all because of these strange patterns appearing in the fields. But we don't actually know where they come from.
One of the finest, most beautiful and original art forms of modern times, still totally mysterious. Is this a process of advanced communication? Or a course of re-education, beginning with the symbols of sacred knowledge and wisdom?
Is the truth to be found up there? Or maybe down there? Or inside us? Or maybe besides us in another dimension? Anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see where this is going to take us.